Billy Renee, hi, there you are. Good to see you.
We're talking on my office phone, and
Understood.
I've got my laptop muted because I thought somebody might want to actually see who they're talking to at some point. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, good.
And I've got my staff in here too, so we're all, if you see me do this, you'll know I'm in a room full of people right now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started through things, and I'll turn it over to you, and we will go from there. So thank you, everybody who was on this call. I know we'll have some other folks jumping in. Welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your day to gather this critical information and for submitting your questions to me earlier this week. I think that's going to help us move this on quite a bit. I did receive 15 questions from our local officials. I forwarded those on to Billy Renee, and we will go through this. So first of all, for those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting Billy Renee Johnson, she is our expert on this topic. And those of you who have not had the privilege, she is one of the most knowledgeable people on federal programs that you could come across. So we're really fortunate to have her heading this up and talking with us today. So what we're going to do, if you would go ahead and mute yourself, that would be super. That way we don't have a lot of background noise. As I said, I'm sure she's got some intro for us, some general information, and then I would ask if she would go through the questions we submitted. Once we're through all those, if there are any follow-ups, we'll have folks unmute themselves and ask them. Does that sound like a good plan, Billy Renee?
That sounds good to me.
Awesome. And do you want to introduce whoever you have with you as well?
Yes, I'll be glad to. And thanks for those kind words. It's nice to, my theory is you don't have to be smart, but you work smart. So you always got to surround yourself with smart people. So the staff that I've got with me today that are getting me through this, I have Mark Williams, Gabe Nickel, Travis Weber, and Jennifer Peters. So right now, these are the ones that are keeping the eyes on our inbox that we have designated for you to submit your applications to, and which I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But and I'll be glad to turn the screen around. I've got a pretty good sized office, so we are social distancing for sure. But we was actually going over some of the questions that you had submitted, and thank you all for submitting those questions as well. I'll touch on those in just a few minutes. And also, if you do have some questions, Lisa, if you don't mind, if they want to type those in the chat bar on this Zoom, just make sure I'll try to touch base on them. Just don't load it down. The last call I had this morning, it was going pretty quick, and I couldn't catch up. So I don't want to miss anybody's questions for fact.
Okay.
So as you do know, the CARES Act, we have been established to $300 million. That has been allocated in a max capacity number to the cities and the counties. And the Kentucky League of Cities have placed their amounts, I think, on their website. If you did not get notification from KACO, which I think they sent out a notification, you can let me know and I can give you your county numbers. As you read on their guidelines, now let me go ahead and give you our website. You can go to kydlgweb.ky.gov, and if you scroll over to the right, there's some boxes there that have federal grants listed on the tabs. You can click on that. That will take you to our federal grants page, which will be COVID-19, and be sure to scroll all the way down to the bottom because there's some useful forms on there for you. The application that you will be submitting to us is on there, and it is saved in a Excel document format. Please be sure to save that and send it back to us in that same format. We've had to return some that were changed up, and those are interactive forms for us to use as well, that we will fill in information once we receive your application and review it. Upon receiving your application and getting reviewed, if there's any questions or any conflicts that we have to discuss with you, we'll let you know. But if everything's approved, then you will receive a preliminary approval letter from us, And in that letter, it will explain to you exactly what we have to do to keep on going forward and get everything processed. We will expect you to sign that letter, the second page of it, send it back. Also, you has a resolution, and also there is a duplication of benefits form, and that is something that's very important because we got a lot of money that's floating out across the state in different agencies. I know some ambulance services have already received direct deposits into their accounts from HHS, so you want to make sure that anything we are looking at does not, we're not paying for something twice. We want to make sure that everybody stays off the front page of their paper and their audits all come back clean, because keep in mind there will be audits, and this money will be looked at closely. So you want to make sure that everything is accounted for accordingly, and your documentation is very detailed. One of the questions that was on the list was, of course, and I think I just answered it, you can send a electronic application to us, and the signature has to either be by the mayor or the county judge. And I think it's on the request for him. There's a grid on the 5-tab application part, and at the bottom is where you put in your mayor or judge's name. So I think I talked about, and the next question is, will a city or county know how much they get? And yes, you will. On the preliminary letter, when you send that back, you'll pass your resolution, send that back. You've got your signed documentation. We will then proceed into a memorandum of agreement, and that is your contract with our state finance cabinet. We will get all that processed through. We will send it back for you to sign and your general counsel to sign. And then once that goes final through our finance cabinet, which they'll have to put the final approval on that, we'll be ready to rock and roll and get your money back to you. And of course, this is a reimbursement program, so we can't push forward on anything, but some of the things that you can be reimbursed for, I know I've heard some say, you know, it's really not going to help my area that much. We didn't spend that much money on COVID-related expenses. And if you didn't, then you can consider yourself very blessed, because some areas had to spend more than others, and, you know, hopefully we don't have to do that later on in the year, and hopefully our numbers will stay down and we don't have any hot spots to where we could have to spend more money come towards the fall. But anyway, with that being said, we will get you signed an MOA. You can do your request for disbursement, and we will start paying out whatever your expenditures are that you've incurred from March 1st through December 30th. Now, on that website, there is guidelines, there's FAQs, and the FAQs are very important to look at, because on the first page of our FAQs, it talks about the salaries being paid of your fire, police, and EMTs. And that's on page 1. And some of the language scares people a little bit, but the way we have been sent the information down from the U.S. Treasury and on their guidance, it is presumed that going back to March 1st and moving forward, police, firefighter, EMTs, they are presumed to be working COVID-19. And so that's what you can submit. And you need to submit those with a payroll record. We don't want Social Security numbers on these records, so please redact some of that personal information. You can still keep their names on there, but a breakdown. And when I say 100% salary, it is their salary and their fringe. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything here, because I've kind of skipped around. And I think that was the answer to the question on page 5. Is it accurate that all police and fire payroll expenditures are eligible? And yes, it is. And so if you go on page 7 of the FAQs, which is an addendum, you will also read on that addendum that says the Commonwealth of Kentucky's interpretation is that your frontline public-facing, public safety, police, firefighters, EMS, and public health payroll expenses are eligible under the presumption guidance. And there is some different press releases that have been in the papers, and I think Senator McConnell had actually talked about this money being able to go to salary for our first responders. Back last month, he had a nice little blip for in the Courier-Journal. So this is information that is going to be of help to a lot of you, I realize. And that falls under number 3 on the guidelines. And you will see how these different aspects and the guidelines and what you can be reimbursed for falls under a certain subsection. So if there is something there that you are not sure if it is eligible or not, then by all means, shoot us an email to the dlg.crf@ky.gov inbox. That actual address is on our website as well, and we'll be glad to answer any questions. Now, we've actually done quite a few of these. We had a long call today with our County Judge Association and Magistrates and Commissioners, so I have spoken about this stuff quite a few times, and I may forget some things, and which my bunch here, I'm hoping that they'll speak up if I forget anything. One thing that is not reimbursable, and I hate it because I know it's a drain on some of your payroll, but the jail personnel costs are not eligible under this reimbursement. Let's see, I'm trying to look here. Our salaries for existing employees that spend time on COVID eligible for reimbursement. Just regular salary employees, no, they will not be. Now, this has a little bit of a gray area to it. If you have employees, city or county employees that, for example, a road department, if their job duties are being repurposed and say they're going out and the road department's not doing nothing right now, so we're going to use them to help with meal delivery, because we know that meal delivery was something that increased during this time. That's repurposing their duties. So that kind of information needs to be documented very clearly, but it's eligible for reimbursement. If not 100% of their time is spent on it, our partial reimbursement is eligible. No, just the repurposed time is what that would be. And then what sort of documentation is needed for this? I think I'm getting ahead of myself already. That would be their payroll forms, and like I said, you cannot document and justify anything enough when it comes to backup documentation on tax dollars. And for the past 8 years, I've worked here with post-severance money, and I'm really picky about what you have to justify your funds. So, and I think it's a good practice to have. So we got to make sure everything is documented really, really good. Okay. In computing an employee's dollar charge per hour, what benefits are allowable? I would have to think that it would be whatever is on the payroll for that person. If they're repurposing their duties, it's all across the board. And it's the same way with your public health that we said the payroll was fine. That's everything across the board there as well. Okay, hang on a minute. Let me see here if I can pull up this chat. Does the resolution need to be done prior to submitting the application? Do you have a sample resolution? Okay, the sample resolution is on the website. Once you receive the application, it will tell you that you have to, or in the preliminary letter, it will tell you that you have to pass the resolution and sign the duplication of benefits form. Both of those are on that website address that I gave you down at the bottom of the page.
Get the application in first.
But get the application, that's your first thing. Can the local city request first responder salary reimbursements on behalf of the local fire EMS district when the city does not have their own fire and EMS department? Nancy, I had a question about this earlier, and I would like to know some more about that. I'm going to think that there's some wiggle room there because there's also a part in this, you know, if that fire department or if an emergency ambulance service may be privately owned or by a company and not owned by the city or the county, I want to talk a little bit about, I want to talk through that with you, because there's also some parts in here that are eligible for grants for small businesses, and this is the second time that's come up today, and we want to make sure that we talk this out. I have a staff here of 5. We make sure that not one of us makes a decision unless at least 3 of us here can agree on what's eligible and what's not. And we want to make sure that we get everything. That's the reason why I want to talk to you more about that, if you don't mind. Okay. And I didn't answer these. I think I was on the phone, so you may need to come in, Jim. In the case where we have several employees doing the task of sanitizing, disinfecting the building and vehicles, do we need to define their specific individual rate of pay, or can we do an average rate of pay? Do the costs need to be specific to the individual as opposed to the average for all those doing the task?
It needs to be regular payroll, like they would regular payroll.
Okay, if you did not hear what she said that needs to be just the regular payroll. Okay, there's a good question. I may not have said this a minute ago. Can salaries for admin support staff that work for the police, fire, EMT get reimbursed, or is it only the sworn first responders? Thank you so much. I've said this already 100 times in the last 4 or 5 days, but no, the admin folks that work inside, they cannot. It's only the sworn officers and the ones that are out public front-facing. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, for putting that out there. What is acceptable documentation for equipment and supplies purchased specifically due to the COVID-19? When it comes to purchasing disinfectant and all that, I want invoices, also cancel checks, and they would need to be front and back, or if you have bank statements, highlight those areas of what that invoice will go through.
In local government, care for capital projects to expand facilities and use.
Can local government use CARES funds for capital projects to expand facilities with the inability of complying with social distancing measures that can be demonstrated? In other words, heavy office occupancy, no space available at any other county facility. Can the funds be used to enlarge the office work space to create safer working conditions for full-time staff? Yes, I wouldn't recommend going in and doing a whole building improvement, knocking down walls and doing a lot of brick and mortar in the process of that. But if you have to come in and do and install glass partitions in your clerk's offices, especially, that's what I'm thinking of, because some of them have already done that. I would think that that would always be covered already, yeah. Y'all good with that too?
Yeah, they can always call us to clarify.
And if you have a question on that, if you think it's too much, then give us a call and clarify with us, and we'll talk about it some more. Are special purpose government entities eligible for these funds, or is it just cities and counties only? Oh, my screen went blank.
They are, as long as they go through the city or the county.
They are eligible, but they have to go through the city or the county. Also, if you've got volunteer fire department, we will pay for those runs that they are doing. We can't pay the salaries on them, but we will pay for their runs.
The answer to all their questions on 13 is pretty much county, city or county.
And those are the answers on page 13.
Or number 13.
Or number 13, excuse me. Okay. This is one we haven't had, I don't think. We have social workers who are not sworn officers but are out in the field working. Is their salary eligible? In the U.S. Treasury guidance, it didn't mention that. I'm sorry. Can we reimburse the police command staff, including the chief? Yes, you can.
And the county sheriff?
The county sheriff, yes. Yes, and the sheriff too. To one or more city-county combined funds to develop a COVID-related business retention and expansion program.
If the city and county wanted to go together to do like a small business thing, is that what they're talking about?
If you're referring to possibly the city and the county, maybe getting together on, getting a small business grant for some of your your businesses, that could possibly work. Also in the guidelines, I think a unity of government can actually, if you don't have an area where there's money needed on any kind of COVID-related expenses, you can also pass it off to another entity. So that's definitely in there as well. With KDOT being limited to having their employees work only 25 hours a week, some state road issues are being undertaken by the cities, potholes in particular. These are being done where the potholes are significant enough to be a hazard to motorists. While KDOT is made aware of the problems, the reduction in hours does not allow them to get these issues. If the city fixes these problems on state routes, is the cost of that an allowable charge of relief? Unfortunately, I'm sorry, it's not. If a city would like to institute a grant program for small businesses for business interruption costs, what is the definition of a small business? Is there a certain criteria that is required for approval by the state? And C, besides loss of business, can it include any expenses that the businesses needed to make to ensure the business conformed to COVID regulations, partitioning signs, and floor markings? So as for the small businesses, you will need to develop a grant agreement between them and your small business. And you all, whoever the city or the county is that does this, they'll be the ones that have to monitor whether or not that business follows the directions from the grant. So it's more so of you being in a contract with them. Our contract only goes with the fiscal court or the city. So as for stipulations on what you expect out of your small grant, your small businesses, that would be more left up to your all's discretion. Let me caution you, though, a lot of small businesses have already received some grants through the Small Business Administration, the PPP loans. So I would make very clear as to what they're using that for. But, yeah, for business interruption, and then if they have to come in and do proper regs for COVID-19 for people to be able to come back into their business, all that would be covered under that. But those would be the more stipulations that you all would need to do after they sign a contract with you.
The definition of a small business is 500 or less employees that are.
And the definition of a small business in the federal grant world is actually 500 employees or less. That don't seem too small, but I guess it is. Okay. Can police helmets be included as PPE for possible dispense and securing local health care facilities be included? And
What about a helmet?
Maybe a COVID shield, maybe, I don't know. I mean,
Well, I mean, like, right now, everything that's going on, they have to have something.
Yeah, but that's not COVID. But that's not COVID related. That's riot related or protest related.
Mr. Hamburg, if you don't mind, I'd like to have that in an email for us to look at a little bit more. I can understand all the PPE and the shields and stuff. we're gonna have to talk about the police helmet stuff. And securing local health care facilities be included. If you don't mind to elaborate just a little bit more on that as well. Are ambulance repairs during this period eligible expenses? No. Okay, Lisa, I think I went through all of your, questions that you had listed, so I'll be glad to open up for a few more questions if you want to, because we're only 25 minutes in.
Yeah, no, you guys did that so efficiently. Thank you. I think we've got a couple more coming in on chat. There's a new one there.
Okay, can the power COT load systems by Stryker or Furno for ambulances at an average cost of $40,000 be eligible? Oh, cot load system, that's what it is, a power cot load system.
I don't know what that is.
I tell you what, Dan, if you don't mind, I'd like for you to email. I'm going to give, I'd like for y'all to email your questions, those particular questions, because we may want to call and talk to you about this. I realize there's some equipment that we've already been talking to some folks, and we've got to decide on too. And this power cot may be the same thing. If it's what I think it is, it helps to give.
Is that the stressor thing?
I think it's the stretcher.
Because I've had that question twice too, and I think we've said yes.
I think we've actually said yes on this, but I want to make sure that this is the same thing that we're talking about, because I believe it helps restrict more contact, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what they told me too.
With patients as you're loading them in the ambulance, if I'm correct on that. Should we submit all items if we exceed our maximum award in case some might be disallowed or in case the maximum amounts might be adjusted in the future? Okay, I don't mind anybody ever sending more stuff, but I would much rather, before you send it, you all have everything that you know that qualifies sent to us. Any other time, if we didn't have over 400 cities and 119 counties that were submitting information, we would be able to, I mean, and we'll go through this, but it would be great if everything aligns pretty well and is approvable right when you send it.
And the MOA is going to be for the allocation.
And the MOA that we do is going to be for your maximum allocation. So once you hit that number, you won't be able to get any more money, because the contract will stop there.
Really, Renee, will you talk to them a little bit about submitting invoices and that they can submit more than one? They don't have to have all of their costs determined right now?
No, you don't have to have all your costs determined. You can send in an application right now, and actually, Ryan, I'm going to hold there. I want to come back to what you just said. That's what I was thinking. But anyway, you don't have to submit everything right now. A couple of months down the road, I would go ahead and do your payroll now for your police and your public officials, safety officials. Get that in, and let's get all this information started. It's about a 3-week process at the most. Well, that's what we're hoping. If as long as you all get your stuff back into us, it would go smoothly in a 3-week process. But you could, a couple months down the road, you can do another request for disbursement as well. Actually, we did have somebody send in an email on this cot, and that's what we were thinking about, the Gallatin County. That's the one that sent that. So that's the same information.
It is the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the same thing. So yeah, we approved it. Okay. Thank you for clarifying, because that's what I was going to go back and look for. Can we be reimbursed for a trailer that is purchased to deliver meals to the city? Is that the only purpose of that trailer?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you hear me? Sorry, this is Jennifer from the city of Owenston.
Hi, Jennifer.
Yes, we were, our Public Works, he goes up to Northern Kentucky to haul meals down here for the city. And all we have is a dump truck. So we were looking into purchasing a trailer to help with those deliveries.
I vote yes.
Okay, we just all got to vote for yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Could you please tell me where to find the application and other information? That would be, the website is kydlgweb.ky.gov. And you hit on the, federal grants tab. Are you saying to submit payroll for the time period 3/1 to 12/30 or just until right now? It's only until right now. We can't push anything forward because this is strictly a reimbursable, fund.
All right, do we have any other questions out there, either via the chat or if you just have one you would like to ask? Oh, I think Mayor Hamburg popped another one into chat.
Okay. Referring to previous question for clarification, local PDs who would be called for support for security. Looking if helmets in this case would be considered for reimbursable expense.
The helmet?
Is it a different kind of helmet?
I mean, are we talking like just motorcycle helmets? Is that what,
Is it like a riot gear helmet?
or is it like a riot gear kind of helmet? We're all kind of looking here like we're not really sure.
Sit for security, it doesn't riot stuff to me.
That's what I was thinking, but that's maybe just because of all the protest stuff going on now.
He said,
I don't know
okay,
how that
here,
would protect people.
in this case, would be considered for reimbursable at healthcare facilities. It's root gear or motorcycle.
How's it COVID? What's it COVID?
I don't think we can probably pass that as COVID. You would probably need to get the face shields, that are designed,
Yeah,
PPE.
the PPE
that's
certified.
the one the medical people wear.
You're welcome. I realize there's some things that, you wish they could, we could go with, and I apologize that we can't, but we'll work with you the best we can. Is the emergency management director's salary eligible? He has been on the front line of coordination between public health and county government. We've been doing this, and I'll tell you the reason why. A lot of your emergency management directors are either out delivering PPE, they're coordinating with your other staffers, so we're going to go ahead and say yes on that.
All right, and Billy Renee, what was that email that you said they could email questions to you directly on?
DLG.CRS@KY.gov.
She's going out and pick it up.
Well, mostly the emergency management directors are doing stuff like coordinating.
Oh, that's great.
And is a link to that email on the website as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, yep, Judge Moore.
Hi, Judge. Can the county reimburse special districts such as libraries for PPE, acrylic shields, etc. related to COVID reopening? Any PPE, yeah, you can. Don't you think we can, special? Which is pretty much at your discretion too, Judge, but yeah, that'll work. Good to see you. You haven't heard of me enough today.
He's seeing if you're being consistent.
He's saying, make sure I'm consistent.
So is there anything else that you've had asked at any of those sessions that you think might be helpful for our folks?
You all got anything?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
Really study the FAQ format.
I would just suggest that you study the FAQs and if you have not looked at the guidelines, read through those and kind of absorb them. And it's one of these things that you got to kind of really think about on exactly what we can do to fit this in the guidelines. But you know, of course, keep down every dollar that you got, and we'll try to get it back to you.
I think we have one more chat question from Chief Bailey.
Oh, okay. Okay, our computers, laptops, printers, and so on that is bought to give to employees to work from home. Absolutely, and I apologize that I didn't say that because I've said that on every other one, but yes. Also, too, if you've had to buy a subscription of Zoom, or if you bought iPads for some of your commissioners or city council to be able to Zoom from home for your board meetings, those will be able to be counted as well. I do have something else, too. Some of you, and I think Judge Moore will probably recognize some of this we've talked about already on a few phone calls. For those of you who have constituents that are probably struggling with the utilities, and now that they've lifted some of the restrictions on rent and stuff, that there is, they could be coming to you asking for help. Keep in mind, we have our community development block programs here. We are supposed to be getting close to 30 million, 30 million plus actually, and within some of that funding, they have already said that we could use that for utilities. So keep that in mind. Also, if you've got constituents that could be in trouble, you may want to direct them towards the Team Kentucky Fund. That right there, I think if they qualify with that application, they could receive up to $1,000 per household. So those are just two more resources to help anybody that could be in a little trouble right now.
Okay, well, thank you. Oh, wait, we have one more pop up.
For payroll expenses, do we go by pay date or pay period? Susan, I would assume that you all would want to start March 1st and go however long it is up till, I would think you may want to do it in a quarter if you want to, just because it ended May 30th, but it's kind of left up to you all.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for taking this time with us. I'm sure we'll have many more questions as we go through the process, but this has been very helpful, and appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to come together and discuss this. Anything else?
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.